talk about is I get, through my books and my emails, I probably spend 4 hours a day on women contacting me through my books, asking me questions. And as you might imagine, I get a lot of the same questions. And so much of the time it's communication. It's communication with a guy. It's just like, I can't get him to do this, or I just met a guy and he doesn't call me back, and it's, or I'm with a guy and things aren't going good, or I've been married 10 years and I can't, get things, healthy, So I always say I like to bring us back to our childhood, and I always like to look at the sandbox. I like to look at two little kids, two little boys, or let's take a set, two little boys in a sandbox and two little girls sitting on the side of the sandbox. And just look how they communicate. I swear you can learn so much watching that set versus a psychiatrist, psychologist, but not to crap on them. But little boys, they don't the girls will grab each other's hair and they'll talk and they'll communicate even at an early age. And the little boys won't. What will they do? You'll hear a lot of grunting. You'll hear a lot of, punching. They'll probably be punching each other. It'll probably lead to sand being thrown. A fight for the best Tonka truck. I know my mom's got a home video of me actually doing that, which, she horrifies me every time. But it just doesn't change. 20, 30, 40 years later, men are still the same way. We communicate through our actions and not words. And women, it's just the opposite. And women always want to communicate. And it's not your fault, because this is how you are. Want to communicate with a guy through words. And we communicate with our male friends through actions. And examples are, how guys text. We text. You might not know it, but, we text. We don't text anything beyond a sentence. We're lucky if we get 2 words. And they're usually insulting each other, and it's just a means to get to wherever we're going or make a plan or what have you. And then women, doing what women do, will text in paragraphs, and it's just not effective, okay? And so in Today to Man that you mentioned, I have this chapter called Man Mode, where it's basically where you learn to communicate with a man the way he understands and the way he would communicate to his best friend, best male friend. And when you do that, it's amazing what you can get accomplished. And people say, well, that's manipulation or what. I mean, call it what you want. You're getting what you want from the guy, and he is getting what he understands. So you can really change the dynamics when you have a problem in a relationship, or if you're just starting to see a man or you want to meet men, whatever, by just remembering that. Do to them what they do to you, and being a woman, it's so much more effective. If you want a guy to text you and he's not texting you, don't keep texting you, or don't keep, when you talk to him, saying, I wish you'd text me more, I wish we'd communicate more. No, that's will get him. He doesn't communicate like that in the sandbox, Don't contact him as much, 50% less. And then if he cares for you, okay, if he doesn't, then you lose him. But if he cares for you, he'll say, Michelle, I called you the other day, you didn't respond, or I text you and you haven't gotten back to me yet. And now I call that the shift. You haven't whined or complained about the situation. You've let him, by your actions, okay, back to the sandbox, your actions made him bring up a topic. And now, through a position of power, you can say, oh, okay, Michelle, okay, Greg, I didn't get back to you because, I texted you a couple times and you didn't get back to me. So I didn't think I was a priority. And so, I just haven't made you a priority. I didn't think you cared much, and I'm busy. I've got things to do. So suddenly you're communicating exactly what you want, but you're doing it on your terms in a powerful position instead of saying at first, I'm upset because you haven't called me or what have you. So am I making any sense here at all? But
Absolutely, absolutely. So a couple of things stood out there for me.
yes.
That I want to like maybe piggyback on here, Greg. One was, the old joke that men only have a certain number of words per day, right? And the allotment for women is much higher, right?
Right. That's true.
And
Yeah.
I kind of believe that there's some truth to that. And I was having this flashback to back when I was dating my husband. And I can remember, I would send him these emails and he would send me these very short little messages back.
Yeah.
And this was back before there was a lot of texting going on. There wasn't much of that going on. But even when I talked to him on the phone, he was a man of very few words. And yet when we got together in real life, we could have these wonderful conversations and interactions. So
Yes.
I did exactly what you're talking about. I kind of pulled back to where it was more of an energetic match, to where I wasn't putting a lot more of my time and energy and effort into communicating in those ways, which obviously were not his main way of communicating. And
Right.
I felt a lot happier because I wasn't frustrated thinking, what, I just wrote 2 paragraphs and he writes me back 2 words?
Right.
And I wasn't trying to have the big, long phone conversations with him because that has, even now, we've been married now for almost 13 years. Even now, that's not his main mode of communication.
Correct.
Person, he's not a texter, he's not an emailer, he's not a phone guy.
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen relationships, crash and burn. People get divorced because of your very situation. And it's not because one party is right or wrong. It's because the parties don't understand each other. Like here you go, perfect example. When you're together, it's wonderful. And I'll have the woman contacting me and say, Greg, it's great when we're together, but he won't in between and contact me. And the woman will take that personally. Like he can't really love me. He can't if he doesn't do that. And I'll say, no, it's a part of understanding men. You're not taught about this in high school, I always go back to, the book, chapter 1, Conveyor Belt to Manhood. And I list all the ingredients that go into a man. And that is just in our DNA. We need to win. We're, competitive creatures. We want to win, just like in that sandbox. We want to make money. Money is much more important than most women know. It's that important. It's how we provide. And when you start to pick, and there are 12 ingredients, I treat a man, like a chocolate chip cookie, Keebler factory, and the ingredients go into them. And when you start to pick those ingredients out, you start to understand where he's at in the relationship or prior to the relationship. If he comes home or you talk to a guy you're dating and he was going to apply for a new job and he didn't get it, he's not going to want to talk to you. He didn't win. He lost today, okay? And you want to, instead of thinking that this is personal about me, you say no. You go to your vibrant social life that you have outside of his, and you just let him go to his man cave and let him fix his problem. A healthy man will do that and will love the fact that you gave him that freedom. And, he'll come back a day, 2, 3 days, maybe a week later, and talk about it, So again, it's just part of understanding men and how they communicate. Michelle, another example is how we love. The words "I love you" just don't come natural to a guy. They, we usually say them because if we don't, the girl we're with is going to be upset. We say "I love you" by fixing things, by protecting you, by doing these different things that, unfortunately, aren't necessarily romantic, but it's our way of saying I love you. And if you just don't push for those words, usually those words will come, So again, you learn from the ingredients that go into a man. It's like we love in different ways, where, money is very important, shallow to you maybe, but very important to us. and the need for competition, and all these things. Just you go down the list, and something is going on with that man, and it might not have anything to do with you on that particular day. But when you start to understand men and how we think, you become smart as a fox, and realize, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to get what I want from him. And it becomes a win-win for both parties. It's really, it's fascinating, stuff to me, but
it really is fascinating stuff. And it's amazing how understanding just some of these things can make such a big difference in the overall experience of interacting with men, since we're talking to women now.
Yeah.
And as far as the money thing goes that you've mentioned a couple of times, is that because it's that is an outward representation of winning, and an outward representation of, kind of winning in the game and being competitive with other men? What's kind of underneath that?
When we are brought up, it's all about comparison. It's how we're viewed. It's a status thing. It's how we're viewed to our peers when we're growing up. And and it comes down to, when we're young, it's like, who is the popular person? Who's the best athlete? Who is good with the women? It's sad, it's, unfortunate, whatever. But, when we're, high school, it's like, ooh, it's like, I slept with someone, it's who could sleep with women. Of course, we lied. I'm not always proud of my gender, but it's just like that. That's that status thing going on. And so it's really inbred into us. Dr. Helen Fisher, I'm sure, or a lot of people know about her. I mean, she studied it. I mean, she's really come up with, the reason why we need to provide. It's deep in our DNA, and a man just, I'm generalizing here, but a man has a very difficult time loving if he can't provide. If he hasn't accomplished what I call the conveyor belt to manhood, then he's a wet kitten. Okay, they're wet kittens and they're lions. The lions you want to date, and the wet kittens haven't completed the conveyor belt to manhood. They haven't. Their career isn't in place yet. They haven't got to the status that they want to, and it becomes very difficult for them to love. And again, women not knowing this, and I get it all the time. I'll say, I'll have my emails coming in where a woman let her boyfriend, move in and took care of him, and then all of a sudden he was gone off with another woman, and she couldn't believe it. And the reason why is he was emasculated by her. She didn't understand it. She thought she was doing him a favor. And I always say, no, you can't do that. You've got to let him complete what he needs to do. Otherwise you will lose in the end. You cannot fix him in those departments. He must fix himself. And the problem is women choose men that they don't know. They don't know if they're fixed or not, because it's one big sales job. You go on a date, it's one big sales job. I could be, the worst guy in the world, but I bet you I could get, an hour with me. You'd say, oh my God, this is the guy I'm going to marry, But so we're all trying to sell ourselves the best we can, but it's up to you. And then again, we get into my books, how to weed out the users, the couch potatoes, and the losers. It's up to you to have the tests in place to find out what men are even viable to date. And when you understand the tests to put men through, you're going to save yourself a world of aggravation, and your confidence. Your confidence gets destroyed when you're in a relationship, and it turns out that it didn't work out, and so much of the time it's not your fault. Maybe you could have helped it along, but you just did not you did not choose the right guy, So, which makes me back up everything, being a life coach, it's like, I always say my motto is build yourself and he will come. I always say it's easy to give women advice, but if they don't have the confidence, the foundation behind, then they can't execute it. So you really have to, you can't put the the horse before or the cart before the horse. I always mess up that analogy. But so it comes into, two things. You really need to understand men, like we're talking about on the man panel here, and so many women don't. And when they do, that's a wonderful way to build your confidence. And you can actually have fun with guys, because the guys that aren't worth, or that are trying to play you or trying to catfish you online or something, they just become, just jokes to you. And you get rid of them quickly, and you get to the guys that are worthy of dating quicker. Because let's face it, there are a lot of frogs out there, so.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and kissing them doesn't necessarily turn them into princes.
No, it does. Actually, you summarize my point so much better. You can't change that frog, and women, because they don't have this choice in comparison, that's all they have is one frog. I want you to have a whole bunch of potential knights. They might all be frogs, but if you've got choice in comparison, now, if you lose one, you don't care, because you have backups on deck, and you don't try to fix this person that shouldn't be fixed,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a whole nother topic, the whole fixer-upper project thing with men. Do not take it on, ladies. Trust me, you're in over your head. You do not want to do this.
and Michelle, I'm on the other side too with guys. And they're the same thing. They're seeking a codependent relationship. They think a woman is going to, make him happy. And I'm like, no, you've got to make yourself happy inside. We, women, men, have to make yourself happy. And, people get sick of hearing that. It's like, I know. But when you have the tools and how to go about this, when you start to become a student and not a victim. In my new book, Writing Solo, How to Embrace Being Single, I've got this great chapter about, are you a victim or are you a student? And I get through my emails, I've come to find out there are two different people, all wonderful women, but so many come at me like, Greg, I can't find a guy. I can't do this. My financials are a mess. And they're victims. And when you're a victim, you don't take responsibility. So if you don't take responsibility, there's nothing that you can do to fix. You can't fix something that you are not responsible for, if that's what you perceive. Whereas a student will come to me, and I love this group, and I try to take the victim group, get them to the student group, and then the student group gets results, because they'll say, all right, Greg, I'm going to try this. I'm going to do it, and they'll come back with results. And if they don't, I'll give them something else, because again, a student learns, gets out of the comfort zone, hits the door number one, doesn't open, doesn't back up and go fetal, backs up, hits door number two. If that doesn't work, it's door number three. And they're exploring the world. They're learning. They're growing. They're not, being that victim. And those are the women that men are attracted to. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about build yourself and he will come. And then the men come in droves.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's such an important piece. I mean, it's something I talk about all the time with my clients, is making their decisions from knowing their own value, from knowing intrinsically their own value, no matter what is or isn't happening with any given man at any given time, and following what feels right.
Yeah. And you're responsible for your own happiness every day. No one else is. And I understand, if something, your dog gets run over, of course, you're gonna have some bad moments in your life. But you've got to. It's easy to walk away from this video and be excited. And I get women, reading books, or I'll read bestsellers, and you get excited at the end, but you don't do anything. Mm-hmm. So you have to do something. You have to say, and I don't care if it's 15 minutes, and that's the start. I don't care if it's 1 minute. But when you start to live in the now, and you start to, all these things are going to put you right back in your normal habit of insulting yourself or saying I'm not worthy of finding a guy. And you have to counter it. You have to feed that subconscious, which is your problem, because the conscious, has been feeding it crap. You can reprogram the subconscious by what you feed it. It's as simple as that. When you were a kid, you could walk up to anyone and say anything. I used to walk up to the mail truck, and he was driving on the wrong side of the road, and I'd tell the guy he's driving on he was driving on the wrong side of the his vehicle, and I'd say, Mister, you're on the wrong side, fix your car, and my mom would laugh. But we were just so brave. We have so much confidence back then. So we can get it back, but society has just beaten us down so much, so yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's such a key part to how you show up in your interactions is having that inner confidence, that inner knowing of your own value.
Right. And you got to remember that, this victim or student thing, the victim has drama. The advantages to being a victim is you get attention. You get a lot of attention, and you might get money. I mean, there are advantages to being a victim. The problem is men don't like drama. Okay. We don't like to talk. We don't like that drama, and a victim will bring that. So the student won't. The student is happy. And again, it all equates back to men, how you present yourself. And so often is the case that you don't even realize that you're putting off this victim mentality. When the guys you date, they realize it right off the bat. Okay. And this works the other way too. People don't want to hang around with people that aren't positive unless they are negative people also. So the victim will tend to attract another victim. And then, you've seen those relationships, codependent relationships that are just simply aren't healthy,
Yeah.
So,
So I want to ask you a question, Greg, and this is kind of a big question. But two big complaints that I hear frequently from women who are out there dating is either they're attracting the guys who come on like gangbusters, right? Like just right out of the gate, they are giving them full court press, want to sleep with them, or are saying they're in love with them, or want them to be their girlfriend. In fact, I talked to one of my clients about this yesterday. Or they're attracting these guys that just seem like they have no motivation whatsoever. Like it just feels like they just don't do anything, even though it seems like when they're with them that there's some attraction and that there's some interest. Mm-hmm. So those are two kind of opposite sides of the coin. And I feel like a lot of women are going, why can't I get that, like that right in the middle kind of area? But it feels like there's a lot of that happening out there. So that's a big question, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
So the first, and that's a great question, and I get the same things too. And my first question will usually be a question and answer with a question. And I'll always say, what does your social life, consist of? Where do you go? What do you do? How much time do you actually spend on trying to find the right guy? What do you understand about men? Okay. And again, it's put the cart before the horse. You need these things in place. And what happens is you end up getting chosen, and a lot of women will get chosen. They don't, I'm always amazed how women, you guys are wonderful. The fact, the shoes, what you wear, the makeup, things you choose. But when it comes to the most important thing in your life, potentially, a man, you allow yourself to be chosen without having that screening mechanism, Mm-hmm. So I think that's part of the problem. The other part is the exposure. Are you just online? How long are you online? What does your profile look like? Are you attracting men because of your profile and your pictures? If you don't have any information from a guy, I'll argue, or a woman like you that knows a guy, you're going in blind. You're going in blind, and you're attracting all the losers because they can get away with it. I've been telling women, because this online thing has gotten, better and worse. I'm saying to do this. I say, take the pressure off. If you're running into this, you're starting to date negative, and you can't date when you're negative. You just can't. It's just not going to work, in my opinion. But I say old school. brainstorm. I like to write things, but write down, 50 things, 100 things, anything. I don't care if it's going to Mars, write it down. Things that you've wanted to do, accomplish, photography, skydive, whatever, and just sleep on it. Next day, pick 10, sleep on it, add to the list, whatever. And then finally, the next day, go for one or two of them. Okay. So take the pressure off of meeting a guy and just pursue hobbies, passions, new adventures. All right. And when you do that, you're doing, first of all, you're growing, you're learning, you're growing, you're being the student, like I talk about, and you're going to be amongst people that aren't out there at a bar trying to, hit you with a line. So you have something in common. So it's easy. And you're going to learn something new. Now, maybe you hate that photography class, or maybe you couldn't jump out of the plane, but who cares? You gave it a shot. You might have made a new guy friend who has friends you can meet, or a new wing woman, which is a great thing, which is, let's face it, it's hard to meet a new woman at age 35, 55 and new people. But this is how you can do it. And it's, it sounds obvious, but I'll ask, can you do that or will you do that? And, people won't do that. They'll go back into their routine of just going out on Friday or Saturday night, or going back online and going on these dates that they're not going anywhere with, or having bad experiences. And, you've got to make the change. Otherwise you're going to be miserable, and you're just not going to have the luck. The people are there. You've got to get the exposure, and you've got to have the screening mechanism to get through it, quickly, because there are a ton of, frogs, I get it, so.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I believe also when a woman is doing that too, she's going to be energetically a lot more lit up. She's going to be having fun in her life. She's going to be enjoying herself. She's going to be checking a few things off of her bucket list that she's always wanted to try. That's got to be very attractive, right?
Exactly. Now, you might be alone doing some things. You might have to drag yourself out, from American Idol, to go do it. But you need to do that. And then I come back to what I'm talking about. You've got to have the confidence to want to drag yourself off the couch to get out there, And I always say, start with the easy things, getting in shape. Forget about getting in shape and all the, we all know about the advantage of that. It's the endorphins. When you start doing, getting in shape, whatever, has nothing to do with another human. And it's the endorphins you feel when you work out hard. And you can do it at home, you can do whatever, but you feel good about yourself. You can't help it. It's the endorphins, it's the chemicals in your body. So that's something you can do. We're all trying to do it. But when you do it saying, I'm doing this for the endorphins, forget the other things, to motivate me, to get me happy inside, to get out there and try these new things, then, then there's just, there's so many possibilities that can happen. They can't happen on your couch. Yes, online, but if you're living in that virtual online world, you're not growing, you're not learning. If you've had 3 bad dates and, you don't want to go out on this 4th one. You're thinking, what's going to be different this time, and it's just, you got to start that uphill, that uphill spiral, if you will, so,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're talking about kind of changing the trajectory. If you've been on one of those trajectories where it feels
that's better.
Going into a,
you always state what I've been trying to state. You always state what I've been trying to state in 2,000 words and one sentence. Trajectory. That's it.
Yeah. So, but no, I liked your analogy of the spiral upward, and you're talking about things of spiraling upward instead of the. Yeah. Because online dating really can it can be soul sucking. It can take the joy and the enthusiasm and the excitement all out of this in a big hurry. And so I like the idea of changing up that trajectory.
And we have just gotten, we're such a couch society now, it's just not good. I mean, look at the kids today, they're, obesity, I don't think is the soft drinks. I mean, we drank soft drinks when we're kids, whatever, but it just, they're just home. They're playing video games. They don't do anything. They don't get the, the interactions, that experience. And when you older can happen too. You say, "Ooh, I'm going to try this online thing," and you don't understand what you're getting into. And to me, you got to get back out there. You've got to be, with people having fun, and then it just makes everything so much easier. You start to be happy, and you start to have experiences to talk about. You become an interesting person. I always talk about having a great story. I always say, what is your story? We all have a great story. But if you've been married for 10 years, your story might have faded a little bit because you're taking care of your husband's needs and your kids' needs, and your story got faded a little bit. So you come out and, I've got 7-year-olds, recreating their story again. And you can do it. And when you do, you go out on a date now, you online, eHarmony, whatever, and you go on a date, and it's like you've got something to talk about. I get to hear about your whitewater rafting adventure instead of your girlfriend that got dumped for the 10th time. Again, I'm interested in what you have to say. But if you don't have those hobbies and passions and experiences behind you, you're going to be relying on me, for conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I want, yeah.
Yeah, or your story's going to sound like a tragedy or a drama.
Exactly. And we all have that. Don't get me wrong. And I don't mean to poo-poo the tragedies, and because we have them, especially
Right.
women got some bad, some bad things in their past. And, I'm not trying to say it's easy to get over that, whatever, but it doesn't mean, that you can move on. My dad would always teach me two of the worst emotions were worry and guilt. Guilt is living in the past and worry is in the future. And they're just two of the most useless emotions. You can only live in the now. There's no, 5 seconds ago, I can't be there. Tomorrow, I can't be there. I can only be right here on this video right now. And if you choose to live in that moment and, stop and smell the roses, whatever you want to say, it's very difficult to do. But if you constantly bring yourself back to the moment and enjoy the smells, the sounds, everything that you're involved, because this is it. This is life, So I don't know. I've been working on that a lot, and it's really helped me be happy, because if you're living tomorrow isn't going to be better. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You think it will be, but it starts with what happens now for tomorrow to be better. You can't be there. So why try,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's an interesting concept that people just can't do, so.
Well, and so much of what we're talking about here, Gregg, is really about not only having a better love life, but it's about just having a more enjoyable life. Because
Yes.
even if there has been tragedy or drama, and that many of those things are very real, and there's
Yes.
real healing that needs to take place on some of those things. There are a fair amount of things, not everything, but there are a fair amount of things that can be turned into comedy after a certain amount of time has passed.
Yes, true.
Some of my most disastrous dating experiences in the past are now hilarious to me. They're hard at the time, but
Right.
now with a little bit of distance, I can look back on it and I can see kind of the humor in it all.
Yeah.
And I just think, we can approach life as you were talking about earlier, not just our love lives, as a student or as a victim. And when we can take the value from whatever experiences we've had and heal ourselves, do whatever work is required, get whatever support is required to heal, then we can live our lives more joyfully. And so this goes far beyond our love lives. It's our full lives that we're talking about here.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's exciting stuff. I just find there's always there's always people that get it, and they're the ones that have the guys all around them because they get it, because they've got, they've fulfilled, these things. They're comfortable, in their own shoes. And, it just makes them more attractive, because that's what guys want. I mean, guys want to see a busy woman. They want, they want to know that they've got to fight, to work hard. Here we go, competition again, to get you. So when we see an interesting woman with all these things going on, you're very less likely, when I call you up on a Friday night and say, you want to get together, and you're going to say no, because you've actually got plans. You're not trying to play me. But a woman that is just, I call them keepers and rest stops. And I don't mean that in such a negative term, but a rest stop will be a woman that might just say, oh yeah, I'm available, and the guy, you get together, but the guy's thinking, I didn't have to fight for this. I called her an hour before and she's ready to go out. And it just, to me, if you're busy, that doesn't happen, and you don't allow that to happen, and you make the guy work for it a little bit more. And, it's funny, Michelle, I always, I think we've talked about this before, but I always want to interview the elderly couples, the ones that have made it, because I want to know their story. I walk up to them, I talk to them, I sometimes get maced.
Oh, no.
I'm kidding. But, and the funny thing is, and I get this a lot, I was so surprised, is the guy will say, this 80-year-old guy, he'll say, and she's right there, and he'll say, I never caught her. The key was, I never caught her. I feel like I haven't caught her today. And I see the woman just smiling because she gets it. I'm thinking, you probably know more than me, about men. And I just find that fascinating. And I get that a lot, is the guy, the woman never made the guy her hobby, and she just always had things outside of him, and he just was like, geez, does she love me as much as she did yesterday? Did she, and it keeps a man from ever wanting to have an affair, or anything like that. It bulletproofs your relationship, when you understand the male psyche and how challenge and mystery, those are two more ingredients in that conveyor belt to manhood I talk about. And this isn't games, this isn't games being played. You by default are a challenge and mysterious when you have these passions and hobbies and great life outside of his. By default, you become that challenge and mystery, so it's exciting stuff when you put it together properly and you have a roadmap to get there. Getting guys, it's the easy part. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. This has just been such a fun conversation. We've had there's so many gems here. So Gregg, before we wrap up, I just want to ask you, is there any last thing you would want to share with us that would give women an additional insight into men? Because we're learning all about men here. You've shared a lot of wisdom, a lot of tips, but I want to give you one last chance here.
Oh man, I got about 1,000 here, but you know what? Let's see. Let's talk about milestones. Okay. Here's an example of women not getting it, as far as the male mind. Okay. Milestones. Men don't know what milestones are, okay? We don't even know how to spell it, probably. And when you start to get in a relationship, and again, this isn't, these are women coming through my emails, and I just see it over and over again. They think of the relationship in terms of milestones. Our second date, milestone. We kissed, milestone. His dog likes me, milestone. I met his family, big milestone. Slept together, huge milestone. Okay. And on the other side, so it's like, it's getting better and better and better. And you literally put yourself on a path to failure because you're expecting it. Milestone after milestone, getting more and more. Meanwhile, guys, with a brain that big when yours is that big, are over here just having fun. We're just having fun. We didn't know that, inviting you to Easter was, a milestone in your eyes. We just thought it would be fun, to invite you to Easter, and so many women will say, but this happened. Guys fall in love in a New York minute. It's like when we finally decide that our single life, being with you is better than our single life, it just happens. And we fall in love. It's like, there's our milestone. We don't understand all that other stuff. And women will get frustrated. It's like, it should be moving forward. It should be moving forward. And I say, forget about moving forward. Just live in the moment, live in the now, enjoy it. Keep putting what I call pennies in the jar, the memories. Just keep building pennies, memories. The more memories, the more pennies, shiny pennies you put in that jar. Okay. They got to be shiny, not rusty, which means you're not going to be waiting for the words, I love you. You're not going to be waiting for these milestones. You're just going to be having fun. Have fun. You know what I mean? Just have fun. And it will happen. I'm telling you, it will happen. If you are that person, that high value woman, and you are just enjoying and not pushing the situation, the guy will do it for you, So that's my little spiel on milestones and how to think of them, so.
Thank you for that. That was great. That's a great note for us to wrap up on.
Yeah.
So, Gregg, I want to thank you once again. It's always so great to connect with you. We always have such a great time, and I always feel like I could talk to you for hours.
You too, Michelle. I like the fact that, other presentations I'll do, I'm on a sort of said script or whatever, and with you and I, it's just like, okay, it's just going to be fun. We're going to just, wing it, and I know it's going to be good, so. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the more organic conversations. I think that makes things a lot more interesting. Yeah. And hopefully for our audience as well. And ladies, Gregg and I want to compliment you because the fact that you're here means that you're the type of woman who is dedicated to having an extraordinary life, and you're a student, not a victim. Yeah. Yay!
Yes, student, adventurer.
Exactly. And being a student of life and the growth that can come from that and the discovery that can come from that is one of the best things to pursue in life. I know that being a student is one of the most satisfying things because there's always something more to discover about you, yourself, relationships, men. So fun to learn something new all the time.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
So we compliment you for being here. And Gregg, thank you once again.
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Yep. And we'll see you soon for more. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.